So hello everybody. In this video, we're going to be going over how to create the ink separator piece here. And then additionally, how to create these compression springs as well that we've got on this ink cartridge here. What I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to take the subassembly of that ink cartridge and I'm actually going to end up transforming it. So this is just going to help make our workplace look a whole lot cleaner, just neater, organized, more organized. I'm going to click transform by make connector. And so what we're going to end up doing is I'm going to pop down here. I'm going to go to this sphere. I'm going to end up actually selecting that make connector that's in the middle of that sphere. Now, what I'm going to end up transferring this to is if I hover over this guy right here, I can hold down shift. And then if I click right here, it's going to actually pop that up so that then it's more in line with our actual shuttle pin plastic housings. Another thing that I'm going to end up doing just to keep our area a little bit neater is I'm going to actually hide all sketches. So I just right click that. And so that's going to hide all of the sketches that we've had in there. And so now this is looking a whole lot better here. Now what we're going to end up doing is we're going to create this little ink separator piece. And so there's going to be quite a bit of geometry going on in here, but it is a pretty fun little piece to actually create. So what we're going to do is we're going to first go to this front plane. And what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to create it over here. I'm going to have an actual center point circle that we're going to end up creating. Now this is going to be the actual diameter of this. And so I'm going to make sure the caliper is zeroed. We're going to end up grabbing this diameter. So I got 0.5355 and then 0.536 back and then 0.534. So I'm going to go ahead and go with 0.535. So we can type in 0.535 inches. And then now what we want to end up doing is we're going to want to create some lines. And so we're going to end up having a line that's going to go here. It's going to be vertical. So we can end up creating, let's see, we could actually probably do this just as a rectangle. So we're going to go center point rectangle. I'm going to create one up here. Then we're going to also create one over here too. And so what we want to imagine is that this is the actual outside of this. So we can end up taking this guy out. We could take this guy out, these guys out. And you could even do this too if you wanted to. So we just want to leave those pieces in there. So now what we can end up doing is we can dimension this. So we can actually find out what that distance is between these. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this guy and, we got the dial, or we got the caliper zeroed out. I'm going to end up taking this and I'm going to get this dimension right here. So it's going to be the distance between those flat faces. And so you can kind of see here, that's what we're using the dial caliper on. I also want to make sure that the forceps there are all the way up against those faces. So we're at 0.309. Let's try out this other one. 0.3125, 0.3125, and 0.3125. So I'm going to end up going with the mode there, 0.3125. So we're going to go 0.3125 inches. Now remember, this also is going to end up being, so we can also use some geometric constraints here. Horizontal, this line should be horizontal to this line. This line should also be horizontal to this line. And then what I can do is I can also dimension this out too. So distance from here to here, 0.3125. And then the distance from, actually that should be good. Now, what we can also end up doing is do the extend tool. So we're going to use extend. And that is because this guy should be going to there. Looks like that's all good. The other thing you can do is just coincident constraint, right? We can just end up making sure that that's coincident. Now, this is what I'm running into. That's kind of weird how it just did that. We need to also make sure that this line is vertical and then that these lines over here are horizontal. And so since we have those constraints on there, this should be already set up to be vertical to this line. Let's make sure though that this is indeed, let's just do this vertical. We can click this line, and then also this line, and this line. And then let's just do this to lock this into horizontal. Those two are horizontal. These two are horizontal to each other. Perfect. What I'm also going to do is I'm going to trim this guy out. I'm going to also trim this guy out. And so now you can also use that trim tool again. Remember, I'm just pressing M on my keyboard. We're going to end up cutting this out here. All right. So now, what the case is here for us is that this is, there's a particular thickness to this. And so we just end up using the offset tool. We can actually find out what that thickness is. So I got 0.280 and it looks like I'm pretty consistent with getting the 0.280. So we can put that 0.28 in there again. Go ahead and offset this. So we can click offset and we just want to follow this profile here. Now this is going to give us an error. We just got to bring this in here. And so we're going to go through here, just create this. And so now, in terms of this distance, as we were saying, we were getting 0.03, pretty consistent. Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and put in here 0.03 inches there. And so now what we can do is we can press the green check mark And we've got that completed, right? So what we could do here is we can go ahead and just extrude this. And so I'm going to have it go this way. From terms of this, we can end up capturing that depth, and I'm going to extrude this back. So what I end up with, let me run this again one more time so that I can read it on here. 0.136. So 0.136 is what we're going to put there. 0.136. Now that's how much we're extruding that. Then what I can do is I can bring this sketch back up. And then what we can do is we can actually extrude this. So we're going to go to extrusion, and then we're going to click the inside of that too. And we're going to actually flip the direction over here. Now we got the 0.136 for our previous depth. I'm going to get this overall dimension, 0.16. So 0.16 minus 0.136, that will tell us how thick that face should be right here. And so now we want to make sure that we're adding that to part 13. Now remember, part 13, we can rename that. That's going to be the ink separator. So the ink separator there. And then now what we can also do is we can end up popping back in here to sketch 40. And so now I'm going to go ahead and just create some construction lines here. So we're going to go ahead and press L, and then also Q is toggled there. And then we can go ahead and press L and Q again. And we'll go just like that. Okay, perfect. So now what I want to do is I want to create center point circles. So I'm going to create these center point circles, just that one right there, just for now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually get this diameter here. So 0.124, 0.123, 0.1245, 0.1235. That one's pretty high. So I'm going to go 0.124. So we're going to end up going 0.124 for the diameter. And so let me check that again one more time. But yeah, that's pretty spot on. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use the mirror tool. So I'm going to go select a mirror line right here. I'm going to go with this guy. And then now what I want to do is I want to actually dimension from here to here. And so we can end up finding out what this dimension should be. So I can end up just putting my dial caliper with those forceps in there, and then 0.116. That's what it's looking like. Yep. 0.116. So 0.116 inches is what we've got there. So that's the setup that we've got on this. Now, what I can end up doing is also just using the circular pattern tool. We can end up grabbing these two guys. We can end up taking that center point. And remember, we want to have it be on there. And then now in terms of the total repetitions of that, we just want 2. Now, in terms of this offset, it should be offset only by 90 degrees is what we've got there. So if I press the green check mark there, you can see that these show up now. So then if I press the green check mark once again, it's going to set that up so that it's only those being, it's basically that part is not being extruded out. So what we can do just to make sure, you know, if this is the case for you where this doesn't happen, right? If you just bring it sketch 40 back up, you know, you want to make sure that you have selected for your faces this outside offset part and then that inside there. And so that is how we can end up creating that ink separator. I'm also going to end up changing the appearance of that. So I'm going to go with a dark gray here. And so that's how we create the ink separator. All right, so in this next section here, we're going to end up creating the actual compression spring. And so what we're going to do is just start off on the top plane here. We're going to go in here. I'm going to create my center point circle right here. So we're going to have our spring created here. Now, in terms of this inner diameter of this spring, I ended up getting 0.36 inches. Now, the thickness of, or the diameter of the actual spring itself, that metal, those metal pieces, that's 0.009 inches. And so what we actually have to do, we are creating the helix, right? That is going to be at the center of this. And so what we're going to actually put in here is 0.136 plus 0.009 inches. And so we're going to end up with a diameter of 0.145 inches there. So now up next, what we want to do is we want to actually extrude that. Now, how much are we going to extrude that by? It's going to be 0.029 inches. You want to make sure that you are creating a surface here so that we can end up using the helix tool for that. What we're going to end up doing is basically creating this spring in sections. And so as you can see on the top here, it's got where that wire is wound pretty tightly, and then it kind of becomes looser. And then at the bottom here, it's wound tightly again. So we're going to go ahead and use that. Now, there are 3 revolutions at the bottom of this. And so we're going to end up using the helix tool for this guy. And so we can go in here, helix tool. And then what we want to specify, there are 3 target revolutions. And then we're going to keep all of this the same. So now what we want to do is we're going to create a offset plane. So we're going to click here on the plane, and then we want to offset this. So we're going to go plane, and then we can offset this by that 0.029 inches. We basically want this plane to show up right on top of this guy. So now we do the green check mark. What I want to do now is on that plane, create a sketch. We want to end up using the project tool so that we can use that previous circle there. And then what we're going to do is extrude this as a surface once again. Now this is that actual part of the spring that it's not wound too tightly, that wire's not wound too tightly. And so what the depth is for that we want to specify is 0.957 inches. We're going to go ahead and press the green check mark. We can use the helix tool on this guy again. And what we want to do now is go ahead and count and see how many revolutions we actually have on this part. So we've got, I'm seeing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So 13 there. We're going to specify 13 turns, going to press the green check mark. And so now we want to go ahead and create an offset plane to that plane, right, to plane 8. So I can go in here, type in plane, press enter. Once again, what is that offset distance here? 0.957, because that's what that distance was that we extruded this by, right? And so if I specify 0.957 from plane 8, then we've got it where it lines up there on the top. Now, once again, you want to go into this plane, use that use tool or the project tool. We want to use that previous circle there. Then we want to extrude this. And then that depth we want to extrude it by is once again 0.029. And then now what I want to do is go in here, use our helix tool. And then now we want to specify 3 target revolutions. And we're going to press the green check mark. Now, what we also want to specify is that our check and verify is that these points are lining up there. So those points are lining up well. And then we're going to go ahead and go down here. And then I can see that these points are also lining up. Perfect. And so just like how we did on the torsion spring, we're actually going to be doing the same thing where we're going to be creating a composite curve. And what all curves are going to be involved with this composite curve? Well, it's going to be that bottom curve, and then this curve here. So it's all those helixes, right? And so now what we can do is we can green check mark that. What I'm also going to do is on my surfaces, I'm going to black that out. And so as you can see, we have our actual path that we want to end up extruding here, right? Or sweeping. And then now what I need to do is I need to actually go in here and then create that, the shape or the circle, right, that we want to sweep. So now we can go into this point here. We can do sketch. We're going to use the use, project, and convert. And then what I want to do is I want to get that point right here at the very, very bottom. So that now whenever I go to my back plane, what I can end up doing is creating a center point circle. And then we can specify that 0.009 inches for the diameter. And so now we can press the green check mark. And then so now what we want to do is we're going to use the sweep tool. Now the face or sketch regions I want to sweep is going to be this guy. That sweep path we want to use, I'm going to click down here. Actually, we can go right here, the composite curve too. We want to select that guy. And so let me make sure that I'm on there. Okay, so sweep path, you have to actually go to curve 6. So if I zoom out, you can specify or you can verify that. See how it's selecting all that. It's that composite path. And so now it's going to actually create that. Now what I can also do is hide my curves as well. And so that you can end up seeing that we have the compression spring. All right. So next step is the fun part. We get to assemble all of these pieces. And so you can be thinking about how you can assemble these. Another thing to keep in mind too is that you do need different colors of these. So I want you to be thinking about how we can end up possibly using the variable table to specify different colors. Maybe you can Google search that. But in the next video, I'm going to show you how we can change the colors of those using the variable studio. And then also even how we can change the color of our grip and the clip of the shuttle pin too, because those are things that vary in color as well. All right. Anyways, hope this video was helpful. Happy on-shape modeling. As always, you got any questions or concerns, drop them in the comments. Don't forget to hit the like and smash that subscribe button. See you all in the next video. Bye-bye.